Today on Roots and Reflections, we continue exploring Israel's Jordan Rift Valley, where we focus on protecting what we believe to be the house of Elisha or Elisha the prophet, which dates back over 2,800 years. Actually, the Jordan Valley is part of that great tectonic rift that extends from Lebanon to East Africa and provides one of the world's great bird migration routes. Twice a year, 500 million birds migrate from Africa to Asia for the summer and return to spend the winter in Africa. That's a total of 1 billion birds a year passing over Elisha's house, like these storks that will soon be building nests on telephone poles and chimneys in the Ukraine and Russia, where they will mate and produce new chicks that'll grow and head back this way. However, there's another bird species, the bee-eaters, that stay around longer in Israel. Bee-eaters love to nest in mud brick walls. They dig holes in walls, and that's why we're concerned for Elisha's house. We've returned to Tel Rehov in the Jordan Valley with work gloves, work clothes, and a whole crew in order to preserve the site that is consistent with all the evidence we have concerning the school of the prophets of the house of Elisha mentioned in Scripture. Now, we have to preserve this site against the bee-eating birds that come and burrow into the walls. So we have chicken wire and we have sandbags, all in order to protect this site. I'll briefly recap the 6 clues that suggest this site is for real. First, it's an Israelite structure dating to the late 9th century BC, the time of Elisha. Second, a plaque was found with the name Elisha inscribed, a not very common name at that time. Third, Tel Rehov is near Elisha's hometown of Abu Mecholah, near the Jordan River. Fourth, additional potsherds were found with the name Nimshi, a name linked to Elisha the prophet. Fifth, 2 incense altars were found, suggesting this was a place of worship. Sixth, the house had 2 rooms surrounded with benches, suggesting this was a study center. Taken together, these 6 clues provide consistent evidence that this was Elisha's school of the prophets and his home, and certainly makes it a site worth protecting from the bee-eaters and rain. This is what we're talking about. This is actually flooring going back to the days of Elisha, and we notice the plaster on the walls that come from the original site. They actually burrow through the wall very quickly, and in this case, they actually came in from the other side. We've got to do something about these bee-eating birds. Get out of here! Back in the name of love. Not that we hate these beautiful birds, we just don't want them to make their nests in Elisha's bedroom walls. Our volunteers are cutting and fitting the sections of chicken wire to cover all the walls. Others of us are bagging soil. The filled bags serve as weights to hold the chicken wire in place so the bee-eaters can't crawl underneath to destroy the plastered walls.
I'm a forensic scientist in the United States. So I've been affiliated with the university and with Israel for a long time. Lived here for 5 years, and so I really enjoy archaeology and applying forensics to archaeology. Found out about this site needing some help as far as conservation and preservation, so I'm here volunteering to help make sure that people can see this in the future and experience it just like in the old days 3,000 or 4,000 years ago.
As we work covering Elisha's house with chicken wire, I managed to talk to Yoni Shapira, one of the country's top tour guides who heads the Israel Tour Guides Association. Like me, he was inspired to help protect Elisha's house. Yoni also knows a lot about the Jordan Valley.
It's the Syrian-African Rift Valley. It starts all the way in Turkey to the north, going through Syria, Lebanon, Baca Valley, through the Sea of Galilee, down through the Jordan Rift Valley, which we are standing in, between the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea being the lowest point on earth, the lowest point of this rift, entering the Arava all the way down to the Gulf of Aqaba or the Gulf of Eilat, into the Red Sea, along the entire Red Sea, to the Bab el-Mandeb, Gate of Tears, where the Red Sea spills into the Indian Ocean. And there it hits land again, going through the Afar Triangle, the Dakhilak Depression in Ethiopia, all the way to Lake Victoria. This is one of the largest rift valleys in the world, and it's still active.
This is actually amazing and long.
Yes, it is long. We are waiting for the big one, like in California, the San Andreas Fault. It's still an active rift. With that area, that mountain range is on the other side of the rift from where we are, and the rift is moving. That area is moving away and to the north compared to where we stand. So the rift is constantly opening up, and there is a shift.
So this is why we've had more earthquake activity in recent years throughout the northern part of Israel.
Well, we have activity throughout history, and we have archaeological sites that really can show us shifting of a few centimeters, a few even inches to feet in some Crusader fortresses or some archaeological sites back in Jordan or on this side. And there is interesting research going on as we speak on to see where is it more pronounced, where the vibrations and the shift is more pronounced, probably on that side than on this side. However, we are also on the border of another fault line coming out of this Rift Valley, which is a north-south orientation, and that is along the slopes of Mount Gilboa. Mount Gilboa over there, where you could see the site where King Saul fell on his sword, his son Jonathan died, and along it is a rift that goes all the way through the valley of Beit Shan, the valley of Armageddon, or Jezreel Valley, all the way to where Megiddo, Hill of Megiddo, Armageddon, supposedly is to take place, and through there to the Via Maris, the way of the sea. This is the most important route between Egypt, along the coast, through the valley, down through here, from here up toward Damascus to Mesopotamia. The biggest transition of people, of cattle, of sheep, of herds, of trade throughout the ancient world, crossing right through here.
So this would have been also a great place for a school of the prophets and Elijah himself, because as I understand it, he actually grew up in this area.
Well, that is what we know from biblical interpretation of the biblical narrative. Putting him in this area, he would meet people from all different diversities of cultures, of beliefs, of ethnicity, and so on, because this was a very important exchange of ideas, exchange of culture, and he was right there in the middle, coming here with his prophecies, with his ideas of a certain trek.
Nowadays, we're trying to get tourists to visit the area, so what can they look forward to seeing in the area?
Oh, the area is just amazing amount of historical, archaeological, and heritage sites, from the very important city of Beit Shan, just to the north of us, Skytopolis. Skytopolis, one of the 10 unions of 10 city-states that were here during the Greco-Roman period. An amazing city that was totally destroyed in the 9th century of the Common Era by an earthquake. And we have the exact date, and you see all the pillars just come down parallel as if a carpet was pulled from under them.
By the end of the day, we have the biblical school of the prophets protected from the bee-eaters. This has been a long day and a big project, but we can put our shovels down and walk through and see what's really happening now to protect and preserve this special site, which we presume very likely could be the place of Elisha and the school of the prophets. Let's walk into the area which could have been one of the study rooms, study halls, where the benches were. Over here to what could have been the room of Gehazi. This is a study room which is now thoroughly protected against the bee-eaters as we walk through into what we believe could have been the bedroom of Elisha the prophet, or Elisha in Hebrew, where he would have laid his head down here, maybe had a lamp in the corner, and a place to study and to pray. And where a plaque was found with his name on is now preserved with your help and your prayers for a place for generations to come to learn and to study at the feet of the prophet. In the bedroom of Elisha, we're reminded that someone has to sleep, and some of you, not knowing when you're watching this program, may be a bit tired. You have bags under your eyes. Hi-ho, it's back to home we go. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da, hi-ho, 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 it's back to home we go. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da, hi-ho, hi-ho. Tomorrow is another day, and we'll continue our tour of the Jordan Valley, But first, let's get into some clean clothes and take a well-deserved break. When producing programs for Roots and Reflections, one can get rather hungry. And I hear that you get hungry as well. So here at the northern end of the Jordan Valley is a great restaurant I recommend to all of you called Sel Tamar. Come on in with me. One for me and one for you. Thank you. So, Sel Tamar means in the shadow of the date tree. I think Sel Tamar has something very special I don't normally see. That's sweet potato pancakes in chive cream sauce and fresh veggies. And I think I'll go for a good piece of beef, but the grilled beef of beef medallions, you recommend that?
Yeah, it's my favorite.
Okay, so your favorite to my lips, that's what I'm gonna go with.
Good choice.
And I'll take it medium. Wow, I am looking forward to this. Those are the sweet potato. Wow, that's special. Thank you. As you know, we say one for me and one for you. Now, too much beef is obviously not good for cholesterol, but once in a while, you can splurge and enjoy beef medallions in red wine sauce at Sel Tamar. Tel Shalem, here we come. Continuing with our tour of the Jordan Rift Valley, we're driving to another biblical site not far from Tel Rechoth. This one is called Tel Shalem, or in English, Salem. We're going to walk up the rest of the way to Tel Shalem. Tel Shalem is near the Jordan River, surrounded by extensive fish ponds owned by local kibbutzim and moshavim, or agricultural communities. This ancient tell with archaeological layers dating back to the Bronze Age was on the front line between enemy Israeli and Jordanian army positions between 1948 and 1967. Tel Shalem has a history that dates back over 4,000 years. But here we see the Israeli defense positions in the Jordan Valley prior to 1967. According to the book of Genesis, Abram, after defeating the 4 kings of the east at Dan, stopped here in the valley of Shaveh on his return southward and was met and blessed by Melchizedek, king of Salem, or Shalem in Hebrew. Melchizedek brought bread and wine and said, "Blessed be Abram of God Most High." Some argue that Melchizedek was king of Jerusalem, but others say that he was king of Salem here in the Jordan Valley, a logical stopover on the way back from Dan to Sodom. In New Testament times, Tel Shalem by the Jordan River was a significant town, and it is here we read in the Gospel of John about John the Baptist. Now, John also was baptizing in Ainon near Salem because there was much water there, and they came and they were baptized, for John had not yet been thrown into prison. Then there arose a dispute between some of John's disciples and the Jews about purification. And they came to John and said to him, "Rabbi, he who was with you beyond the Jordan, to whom you have testified, behold, he is baptizing, and all are coming to him." John answered and said, "A man can receive nothing unless it has been given to him from heaven." Just behind me, we see some young men milling around a water area or a spring at the base of Tel Shalem. Could this have been one of the places that John the Baptist was baptizing the disciples? Tel Shalem is surrounded by lots of water, including springs, the River Jordan, and hundreds of acres of fish ponds. The plentiful water combined with rich alluvial soil and warm temperatures make this valley an agricultural paradise. The Jordan Valley is world-renowned for its sweetness because here we grow dates, and our word of the week is date, tamar. In Bible times, it was a sweetener because there was no sugar in those times. Tamar, that is our word of the week. Tamar is a date. The plural is tamarim. I decided to go down to the spring-fed pond where John the Baptist may have immersed the disciples to ask some of the local guys about dates, tamarim. Yoshua, tell me, there's a word that I want to teach people about. It's the word tamar, a date. What can you tell me about the dates of the Jordan Valley?
It's very nice. The tamarim here are really nice. It's the biggest mataim in all of Israel here.
In other words, the biggest industry in this area.
Yeah, we known from the tamarim.
And do you like them yourself?
Yeah, I very like them. They're very sweet.
Okay, but you're a young guy, and obviously in English there's another word, dates. That's when a guy takes a girl out on a date.
Yeah.
And there's also a name named Tamar.
Yeah, but here in Israel you don't say a date, right? You want to go a tamar. It only works in English.
So what do you say when a guy wants to go out on a date with a girl?
In Hebrew?
Yeah.
את רוצה לצאת איתי.
Okay, that's the narrative here, that to go out on a date is, do you want to go out with me? It has nothing to do with the dates we eat, which is what is so much a symbol of Jordan Valley fruit. Since ancient times, date palms have been a symbol of economic prosperity. Besides the fruit, tamarim for eating, the trunks furnished timber for construction. The palm leaves or fronds provided material for basketry, rope, and fuel. The fruit could be turned into a sweet paste, date wine, or livestock feed. Shops in the Jordan Valley sell products made from tamarim. Yeah. I'm going to try one of his dates. Yeah. Wow, look at this.
Welcome.
Wow. Fantastic.
It's major days, number one. Let's keep 1 year. How are you?
Here and America.
Mixed like salad.
Majul, yeah? Majul dates.
Dates,
Majul.
number one. Honey dates. Honey for honey. شغل الهسه باللسه.
So, I'm gonna take these home and ask Batia if she wants to have a date. In 1967, Israel captured the Jordan Valley, making it the eastern defensive line, today's border with Jordan. In 1968, the first of 19 communities or settlements were established in the Jordan Valley, the first being Mecholah, which is linked to the biblical city, the hometown of Elisha the prophet, Abel Mecholah. The famous Israeli general Rechavam Ze'evi, also known as Gandhi, was the driving force behind the establishment of the 19 communities throughout the Jordan Valley. This memorial commemorates the 400 Israeli soldiers and security personnel that gave their lives in defense of the Jordan Valley.
Now you must make this peace real.
On October 26, 1994, Israel and Jordan signed a peace treaty at the Arava border crossing north of Eilat. Jordan's King Hussein, Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, and Foreign Minister Shimon Peres participated with U.S. President Bill Clinton as Master of Ceremonies.
I thank you for trusting America to help you arrive at this moment. The American people are very proud of the opportunity we have had.
The treaty settled relations between Israel and Jordan, adjusting land and water disputes generally to Jordan's favor, and opened the doors to further tourism and trade. Israel withdrew from land along the river like the Naharaim Peninsula, where a peace park was set up accessible to Israelis but under the Jordanian flag. On March 13, 1997, 80 schoolgirls coming on a field trip from Beit Shemesh, a city west of Jerusalem, came to the Jordan Valley to the Island of Peace. As these girls got off the bus, a Jordanian soldier began firing at them, killing 7 of them and wounding 6 others. These are the photos of the victims of that massacre. It seems like Israel always gets blamed for everything. The world holds us to such a double standard. When the Israeli army defends our people, it's like we don't even have a right to protect ourselves and we get condemned. On the other hand, when tens of thousands are slaughtered elsewhere in the Middle East, no one seems to raise a voice. It reminds me of the scripture, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall condemn." As a result of the peace treaty between Jordan and Israel in 1994, Israel returned the peninsula back to Jordan, although Israelis were still allowed to visit. And of course, the tragedy occurred when these schoolgirls came on a school trip to visit the peninsula. This tragedy greatly affected King Hussein of Jordan, who through a gesture of reconciliation flew his helicopter to Beit Shemesh, visiting each family mourning the loss of their daughters during the time of Shiva, when each Jewish family mourns a great loss. He knelt down beside the parents, and with Benjamin Netanyahu translating by his side, he expressed his deep sorrow over the murders. And he said these words, "Your daughter is like my daughter, your loss is my loss."
Your loss is my loss, my personal loss.
This location on the Jordan River was also a vital link in the Hejaz Railway of the Ottoman Empire. The line connected Damascus with Medina in Arabia with a trunk line to the port of Haifa on the Mediterranean. The Hejaz Railway was made famous by the Hollywood movie Lawrence of Arabia, depicting how Lawrence's bands of Arabs attacked and destroyed the Turkish train. This was the first modern transportation link for those making the religious Muslim Hajj to Mecca, so Muslim pilgrims could travel in relative comfort from the Ottoman capital of Istanbul and points in between on their way to Mecca and its Kaaba shrine. The train started operating in 1908, and the tracks crossed the Jordan River over a bridge near this spot. They say the train was so slow that as it chugged along to Haifa via Afula, one could jump off, pick flowers, and jump back on without being left behind. Even if that's an exaggeration, it was certainly not a high-speed train.
Before 1948, you could take this train from Damascus all the way to Haifa. Let's get it rolling again. Rolling, rolling, rolling by the Jordan. Woo woo! Take it away, Sam. Chugga 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 chugga. Woo woo! On Roots and Reflections, I do all my own stunts.
The Jordan Valley is at the geological crossroads between Africa and Asia, culturally between East and West, connecting flora, fauna, and bird migrations. It was also the location of an early successful attempt at high-speed communications 2,000 years ago.
The pyramid-shaped peak behind me is known as Alexandrium. Alexandrium served as a communications link between the two major Jewish religious centers, Jerusalem and Babylon, during the Second Temple period. In order to celebrate the beginning of the new Hebrew month, the priests on the Mount of Olives would watch for the new moon coming out. When they saw the sliver of the moon, which would occur on one of 2 days, they would light a fire on the Mount of Olives, which could be seen here at Alexandrium. Then from Alexandrium, others would continue lighting fires all the way to Babylon in order to celebrate the new Hebrew month. This was an incredible way that they communicated, for they didn't have internet, they didn't have fax machines nor phone lines. But within minutes, they were able to communicate between Jerusalem and Babylon, the beginning of the new Hebrew month.
Thanks for joining me, Barry Segal, on this edition of Roots and Reflections as we head home through the Jordan Valley.